What's the creepiest thing your child ever said to you? My little sister had some creepy moments when we were younger. She often claimed that people were in her bathroom at night talking and watching her. She called them Pio and the tape monster. There are a couple stories regarding them, both funny and creepy. One night she woke up scared and went to my parents' room to sleep with them. Before she went back to sleep, she used their bathroom, and when she came out she said, "Why are there people in your bathroom, mommy?" Dad was out of town. Mom still swears this was the scariest thing any of my siblings ever did. My son tells me stories of scary Uncle Michael in his bedroom at night. He says he's a grey man that looks like his uncle, and he climbs on walls and calls out to him, and one night he tried to eat him. Yep, nightmare fuel. While I was driving my 4-year-old nephew around, he spent a solid few minutes telling me about the dead body he stashed in my trunk. This was a long time ago, and as far as I know he isn't a serial killer. Admit it, you checked the trunk. My kid keeps talking about the babies in the walls of his bedroom. Very off-putting. When our little one was 3, she had 2 imaginary friends who lived in the wall. Talk about a creepy thing for a kid to say. We moved, and she has grown older. No talk of that kind of stuff anymore. It was a Saturday morning a few years ago, and my wife and I were still in bed, and she was trying to convince me to make pancakes for breakfast. My oldest son, about 6 at the time, came into the room and agreed with her. He then said, "You should make some for Tyler too." Now, he had never had imaginary friends, and we didn't have anybody in the house or family named Tyler, so I was curious and asked him who Tyler was. Tyler is the man sleeping in my bed. Anyway, turns out a local teenager had gotten this drunk the night before, jumped into the local public swimming pool, gotten separated from his friends, and wandered into my house, thinking it was his friends. Very suburban, all houses very similar, and passed out on my son's bed in his wet chlorinated clothes. My son thought this was fine and went downstairs to watch TV in the living room until he fell asleep on the couch, which was apparently the height of awesome for a 6-year-old. We called the cops. He was incredibly embarrassed, apologetic, and still quite drunk, and they came and took him home. Just after my little brother was born, my mom, 3-year-old sister and I were talking about what not to do around the baby. Things like not leaving small toys out or throwing balls around the baby. After a few minutes my sister chimed in and said, "And you don't cut off baby's lips with a sharp knife." It's good advice. Yes, sadly a lot of new parents make this common mistake. That kid should write a book. Get the info out there. Definitely thought it was more funny than creepy, but when my kid was 2 he was scribbling on a piece of paper and quietly sang, to the tune of "Row, row, row your boat, scrape, scrape, scrape your eyes today." This reminds me of my daughter. She sometimes sings the people on the bus go crunch 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 while she laughs. Creepy and funny. My youngest once said to me, "I could make 3 baby hands out of your hand meat." My youngest was 4, was on the carpet playing with his cars. "Son, I can't wait to get a new house when this house explodes." Me, half listening, sure that sounds. Wait, what? "Son, yeah, when our house explodes, be ready and we'll just run out real fast." And then he turned back to playing with cars like nothing was said. Thankfully that was 5 years ago, and my house has not exploded. My ex-father-in-law died a couple years before my daughter was born, so she never met him. He was known as a pretty funny guy, always quick with a one-liner. As strange as it sounds, there were no pictures of him around until my daughter was about 4 years old, and my ex-mother-in-law set one next to the urn where his ashes were kept. The first time my daughter saw the picture she pointed to it and said, "That's Grandpa. I like when he looks in my window and makes me laugh. I don't like his friends, though." She had never mentioned this. When I tried to ask her about it, she seemed nonchalant. She's older now and says she doesn't remember it. I'll never forget it. My mom loves telling me this story about the time I discovered hypnotism. When I was 4, I found out about hypnotism. I don't remember how, but apparently I became fascinated by the idea of having mind control abilities. One day, my mom says my grandpa loaded me into the car for one of our normal grocery store outings only for him to return an hour later furious. After he calmed down, he told my mom that I refused to stop staring him down in the rearview mirror with a very serious look on my face. He had asked me to stop on several occasions, but said I never really replied. I just kept staring menacingly. Then, he said all of a sudden I looked into his eyes and said, "Papa, I'm going to hypnotize you. I'm going to put my toe in your mouth." My mom said she thought it was funny at the time, but couldn't laugh, because my grandfather was seriously so enraged. How come you're not waking up tomorrow? Child says this. You stay up all night out of paranoia and concern. Therefore you didn't wake up, because you were already awake. Gotta love a self-fulfilling prophecy. My son was around 3 at the time. Kept refusing to go downstairs as that's where Angel Man was, and Angel Man wanted to hurt the family. Time to move and burn the house down. When I was about 6 or 7, the house we were renting was going to be sold. My parents instructed us to keep our rooms tidy because people may be walking through the house during showings. I had the idea to take a little box and write fortunes on it. Inside were little slips of paper with fortunes. The idea was that prospective buyers could take a slip of paper to get their fortune, kind of like a fortune cookie. I remember the first couple of slips of paper said stuff like "you will have good luck." Then the rest of them had some pretty morbid stuff like "you're going to die." My parents read the slips of paper beforehand, then sat me down and sternly told me the fortune box was a no-go. I was a pretty serious child. It didn't occur to me that a fortune box should be light-hearted. "Little kid, here is your fortune. Teehee. You will die." Not my kid, but a little girl in my son's kindergarten class told me she lives across the street from a cemetery. I asked her if it was spooky to live that close to a graveyard, and she said very matter-of-factly, "Not during the day, but at night they all walk up to our windows and scream." Grew up across the street from a cemetery. My little sister told us when she was in kindergarten or first grade that she couldn't bathe by herself because the ghost comes and makes the water icy cold when no one else was around. A year ago my daughter was having night terrors. She was 4 at the time. Would wake up screaming every night around 3 AM. My wife and I would go stay with her until she fell back asleep. We assumed she was just having nightmares, but one morning she had told me that she was afraid because there is a man in her closet that doesn't have a head who keeps waking her up. Night terrors suck and are scaring. My 3-year-old gets them. Dude will be sitting straight up mumbling a bunch of nothing and just shaking. I can literally hold him in a bear hug and he won't wake up, but will still be shaking. Freaked my wife and I out the first time. I have an awesome video of my son. He was maybe 2 to 3 at the time. He was taking a quarter and trying to put in the slot just above the door handle of a closed closet. He kept repeating his name, "Pay the lady, I pay her." When I asked what he was doing he responded, "I have to pay the lady in the closet." I asked him why. "Is there a lady in the closet?" He said, "She lives there. I pay her." I'd be more annoyed that the closet demon has the audacity to charge your son to live in his closet. Who the fuck does she think she is? Not said to me, but to one of my colleagues. She has 2 sons, and the younger started to have these terrible nightmares where he's being chased by someone with a huge knife and wants to murder him and all the kids. He would, as you can imagine, wake up screaming and refusing to go back to sleep. And then he asked his mom, "Mommy, is there a way how I could make myself not alive? I don't want to live like this anymore." I can't even imagine how his mom must feel when it's a child, but damn. There are already much creepier ones, but still. We observe a man littering on our block. 3 Yo daughter, he just littered. Me, he did. Littering is bad. Daughter, he should be executed. By which she meant, specifically, having his head cut off. Me, maybe not for a first offense. The end. Thanks for watching.